if you're doing platform engineering, well, maybe not. And because engineering is a science, we not only want to define what platform engineering is to let everyone know about it, but we also want to measure it, because how else are we going to improve? Whether you're talking about agile, DevOps, or platform engineering, it's all about continuous improvement and maybe experimentation on your colleagues.
Hi everyone, welcome to the stage. I hope I pronounced your names right. I asked for the pronunciation of all of your names earlier, so I hope I got them right. I'm really eager to listen to your panel, which is about measuring the impact of tooling, right? Yeah,
it's about measuring the impact of your platform engineering journey, for sure.
cool. I hope it will be great, as it will be for me. I'm really eager to listen to what you have to say, so I will leave the stage to you, and please go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Grazie mille. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. This is a really important topic. Everyone has platforms. There's no doubt about that. But if you're doing platform engineering, well, maybe not. And because engineering is a science, we not only want to define what platform engineering is to let everyone know about it, but we also want to measure it, because how else are we going to improve? Whether you're talking about agile, DevOps, or platform engineering, it's all about continuous improvement and maybe experimentation on your colleagues. So welcome everyone. I cannot stress how we have a uniquely qualified group to answer what is platform engineering and how do you measure it. I will just let you introduce yourselves. And as you introduce yourselves, can you give some background into your world of platform engineering? So Abby, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Abby Bangser. Excuse me. I am a co-lead of the Platforms Working Group within the CNCF. So thank you, Claudia, for the call out there. It's really great to be a part of the community there. And before I share what I do now, I'll share my background. So I have always been in sort of internal optimization and support. I started in QA, went to kind of DevOps and platform engineering. It's always been about how to support engineers at my organization be more effective and more productive on the team. And so I always found platform engineering quite hard when I was a platform engineer. And so my current role is to try and make that easier, because I think the tooling out there makes it hard. And so I'm currently a principal engineer at Syntasso, building a framework to try and help platform engineers make their platforms.
Okay, Anna?
Yeah. Okay, so hello everybody, I'm Anna Ciula. Up till the summer, I used to work for Red Hat in the Open Innovation Labs. So my focus there was working on the teams that were about to adopt the ways of using platforms, our platforms, and working with them to improve the advantage they could get from using those platforms. So it was not just so much about importing tech, but also ways of working, learning how we use that in the open source world and so on. And one of the topics that we were really focused on was convincing them to start working with the platform as a product frames and learning them how to use that product management approach and so on to the platform. So that's what I've been doing for the last 4 to 5 years. And I will now pass to Alexandra.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex. As Abby, before sharing what I'm doing now, I'll talk a bit about my background. So I've been a platform product manager for 4.5 years now. I've worked for startups and government in the same space, and it's always been super interesting for me to see how different companies approach platform as a product. It's really been a wild journey. I'm a senior product manager now at Zoa for the platform group, and we work with energy companies to stop climate change, which is as exciting as humbling. So really enjoy it. Helen?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Greul. I lead engineering for Backstage Developer Platform within Developer Experience Unit at Spotify recently. Similar to Abby, my background is in quality engineering, quality assurance. So I spent a lot of time in my prior years, like empowering internal teams to go faster through platform engineering, through internal tools, observability, that type of stuff. And I've done that in like multiple different domains, from healthcare to finance and to recently content at Spotify. So I'm really excited to for platform engineering to become such a trend, and for like multiple companies becoming so aware of like how platform engineering feeds into developer experience. So yeah, really excited to be here. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Jen.
Yes, it's a good way to remind me to actually introduce myself. I'm Jen Riggins. I am a tech journalist. Until 2023, I'm like a lot of the people in the audience where I had not heard of platform engineering, but I write about the culture side of tech, and developer productivity is a huge driver this year. And also we know productivity is through helping developers work happier. Not sure if that went backwards or forwards, but that's one of the slogans of my co-working. So it worked out well today with my morning tea, which I'm sure y'all are having coffee or tea this morning. I'm really excited to have this conversation because it's pivoting what it used to be. It used to be more about command and control. And yes, we do have tighter budgets, and we are trying to get more out of fewer people on more complex technology. But it seems like while we are reversing the trends over the last couple of years in a lot of ways, sadly, diversity, equity, inclusion, this is not representative of the tech industry as a whole. This wonderful, esteemed, and wildly experienced panel doing platform engineering before it was even probably a name, and working with platform teams before it was probably even the name platform engineering. But one thing that I think as an industry we've coalesced around and realized is that we have to listen to our developers. It's not easy. We think we know better. But in order to continuously improve their lives and improve what they are bringing out as an industry, I think we've agreed maybe there are certain consultancies, big consultancies, that think they should be spending all their time coding. But we're here to discuss how value added should come out. So just to give everyone, as a journalist, a baseline definition, what is platform engineering? I kind of love Abby's first, so that's the one I've stolen.
So I think that's a harken back to, I at one point said that platform engineering is doing the non-differentiated but still highly valuable work in as kind of productive and shared way as possible in the organization. I think that's for platforms, right? Platforms are about holding people up, letting people work at a higher level of abstraction, and that's what we're trying to build. I think with platform engineering, that is the practice of building those platforms. And it's really just another discipline within software engineering. It requires people, process, technology. It requires discipline around product management and software writing as well. So all of that ties together to build those common capabilities that people can depend on at their work.
Yeah, and to build on what Abby was just saying, one additional, I guess, layer to this is like cognitive load and the complexity. And to me, what like the definition that really resonates from like developer experience angle is building abstraction layers to shield developers from the complexity of underlying technologies, and like use that as a means to reduce cognitive load, which is getting very real in the industry. So yeah, that's my favorite one.
I think the way I look at it, it's really an internal product that acts as a force multiplier for product teams to move faster without actually breaking things, contrary to the Agile Manifesto. And there's a very good definition out there by Martin Fowler in his article when I talk about platform, and he talks about platform being a foundation of self-service APIs, knowledge, support, all arranged as a compelling internal product, which I think it's an important distinction as well.
Anna,
So-
what distinguishes the platform engineering from platform as a product?
So I guess the platform as a product is adding the layer of ownership. That's one of the things that's really important in the world of product, because in the past there was loads of projects on little things here and there. And having that one person overlooking what's happening in the whole internal product and being responsible for it, because it's a baby, and is making sure that that baby evolves with time, that it serves its purpose, that it's known by others. It's basically the primary job of the product manager. And I think that adds up to everything that you guys said.
What makes it different from other products you measure, Anna?
The fact that it's different is that it's an internal product, and we don't really make money selling it, but we can still find the ways to understand how much it is costing us and how much we are saving thanks to that. And that, I guess that's something that we can probably elaborate on a little bit more in this panel, because I did hear some people asking, like, how is that a product? There's no price on the platform. So I wonder if that's a good segue to the next topic you had prepared about the metrics. What do we measure about the platform?
Yeah. And also I would say, while it doesn't have a specific amount of money you're paying for, certainly retention is very expensive, and recruitment. So if you don't have happy developers, they don't retain. Alex, uniquely qualified in your role in product for this, I think.
I think I definitely agree with Anna's definition of being an internal product. And if you look at the way people approached internal products in the past with build it and they'll come mentality, that's very detrimental for the organization. And sort of, I go back to my original definition, you have to look at it as a force multiplier for your business. Everything starts with having a really good foundation, a really good internal product. And to use an analogy, I don't think anyone would build their house on a very shaky foundation, right? No one will build their organization on shaky internal products, right? You want to have a really good good foundation.
It's true.
I think I've been in the position not of a product manager for platforms before, so I love hearing you two who have that depth of experience. I've actually been on the other side of that and been interviewing product managers for platform teams before. And one thing I found really interesting is the difference in the audience for your product. Our product is a captive audience. We talk about having it be optional, but at the end of the day, you have a set group of humans that are potentially going to be using your product. And it's a smaller audience. Realistically, you're looking at most thousands, and maybe tens or hundreds is more realistic for your org. And so I've had a product manager come in and talk to me about A/B testing as a way to validate their internal platform. And I've thought to myself, that is a fantastic product management technique for learning about potential new features, but I'm not sure this is the type of product that would work best for. So I think keeping in mind that captive, smaller audience, it's going to mean that certain tools in your toolbox as a product manager are going to be less effective than others, I think.
Okay. And it's probably easier. It should be easier because it is a tighter feedback loop. You can you can literally go in the Slack and ask some questions, or sadly for companies that forced return to office, go sit by them and bug them when they really don't want to be distracted in the office. But that doesn't mean that platform engineers don't think they know better because they're engineers, maybe. So let's put in context of your own organizations. How are you measuring the impact on the product and company in your own organizations? Because not only are some of you working in platform engineering or building platform tools or consulting platform teams, some of you are doing it with inside. Helen, let's talk Spotify, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, let me start with maybe introducing the mental model of how we think about metrics in first place. So to us, metrics are put on scale, with some of them being leading and some of them being lagging. And this is due to the fact that like metrics are products too, internal products, but still products. And they require iterations and they have bugs and they have complexities and we have to deal with them. And metrics, which like I'm deeply convinced that metrics that are both like value focused and actionable by teams, they don't exist. So what we do instead, just to give you a couple of examples of like leading versus lagging. So leading are usually like more action focused, more noisy, more actionable, but more tactical. And you can also game them pretty quickly. So that's also like a question about incentives. And the lagging metrics, which are like important strategic metrics to me, are more value impact focused, but also like it's hard to measure them precisely. So it's more like around making bets and connecting the right leading metrics to the lagging ones. And they're tricky to measure too. So the way like we think about them is more of like a graph where you make a bet of like improving certain part of the user experience or developer experience in that case. And you connect actionable metrics like build times, like flaky tasks, all that type stuff. And then you see what's going to happen there, basically. So like TLDR is that leading influence lagging, and the graph of that influence is basically the company alignment or the department alignment. And it will evolve over time as like we sort of try and see and learn. And yeah, when I'm being asked like when is the good time to start, like best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. So same with metrics, like it's never too late to start. It's always a good time. And a really good way to start to me is like maybe surveys or qualitative basically conversation with your developers. Doesn't have to be a survey, but like you need to ask what they think about it. So yeah, sorry, maybe long-winded way of like saying this, but that's how we think about measuring platforms and success of platforms in general.
And offering them free food, even remotely, is a good way to motivate them to sit down and really focus on that conversation. Abby, what about at your organization? How are you measuring, or at previous orgs?
Yeah, so at previous organizations, we would try and put metrics around behaviors that that developers did quite frequently. So these would be things around starting up new services or delivering to production, things like that. And then once we had measurements of what current was, we would be able to track progress on that. We would track being able to improve that. And that was the outcomes that we wanted to move. So it didn't matter what else was happening with our platform if those outcomes improved. I think the interesting part about where I am today, which is helping build a framework for platform engineers to then build those capabilities and support their application devs. It's like a layer below. Is that what we're trying to do is give people the tools that they need to be able to build those metrics in. So how do you build in monitoring, as Helen said, from day one, ideally, right away from the beginning, and do so in a kind of consistent way, something that you can keep tracking as you go. And I think that's important, whatever tools you use in platform engineering, that they're built for that feedback loop and built for being able to track progress.
Alex?
I think we do a similar thing to what you just described, Abby, but we've got a really good internal team of senior engineering managers. So we work together to have this North Star metric of engineering speed. But context is really important for us, right? So we start defining what engineering speed means for us and why we plan to measure those things, because I think it's really important. And I don't know if this is me being a PM, but context is king all the time. So you want to tell your developers, we're going after these metrics because these are important for us. We want to measure the speed in which we're delivering value to our customers, because that's really important, and it's a really important metric to have. But it's not sort of like related to measuring lines of code and like how the performance of the engineers. So I think it's really important to put context behind the metrics as well.
Absolutely. Just to say, when I talk about like delivery speed and things like that, most of the time that's the thing that our users were clamoring for when we were measuring that, because they were frustrated by the fact that they couldn't see feedback loops for their own code. So this wasn't about pushing them to move faster. It was about that they were feeling limitations because of the speed at which we could get things into production, and how do we improve that. So, but yeah, to your point, Alex, it's definitely context, and it definitely needs to be something that is viewed as a supporter rather than something that is viewed as an oversight or
Totally,
negative
yeah.
thing in that way.
They want to get involved. Anna?
So my profile is actually mostly working with the teams at the beginning of the journey. So maturity is quite low. So at that stage, we try to get them put into the thinking about all kind of metrics, because as one of you, I think Helen said, a metric itself is a product. You need to experiment with them to figure out which one is actually working for you. So we obviously talk about metrics for the product, so all the software delivery metrics, right? Dollar metrics, how quickly it takes you to release yet another service, how quickly you recover and from the failure, how quickly you recover from the bug, etc. But then we also focus on things like adoption. How quickly does it take you to onboard the next team to be able to make use of your platform? Things like how many workloads are currently running on your platform, how many workloads it can support, things about scalability and so on. And then we also think about items like, how is your platform helping your business? Like, does it take does it impact time to market for other teams and so on? So that business impact. So it really depends on the circumstances. It depends on what the teams we are working with are capable of putting together, where they are coming from. But we're trying to kind of pick little metrics from everywhere to make them aware that it's not just one direction they should be looking at. It really impacts multiple items, and they need to have a good mix of this and that to be able to understand whether the product is working well.
So let's build up from there, because I think that's a good point. We did at the Open UK meetup last week, we did a platform engineering panel, and we quickly learned a lot of the audience was very nascent or very beginner in their understanding of the idea of platform engineering, let alone implementing a program. So let's build up, and then we can build up from there. So if you're getting started, what are some quantitative or qualitative, and let's try to group them. Maybe there's a gray area. I don't think so in those. I don't do math. But what are some early metrics, maybe when you're just starting to ideate the idea of a platform engineering program, that you can gather, maybe from the existing tooling you already have? What would be some quick ones there? And then together with the group, get people together and ask them qualitative questions. So what are some good quantitative kickoffs thrown out to the group?
I can throw out one. There's an old XKCD drawing that tries to talk about when you should automate something. And if something takes you 1 second to do, and you do it once a month, but it's going to take you a week to automate it, it doesn't make any sense to automate it. And it's the idea of that you should be using automation to improve your life, improve the things that happen frequently and take a large toll on you, and not just automate because it's fun to write code. Although it is fun, and you can do those side projects at home if you'd like. And so I think that that's something that I would encourage people to do quite early in their journey, is figure out where it are frequent tasks that are common across the organization that are being done and repetitive and duplicated, and how much time and pressure do those things take. So I'll kick off with that as a way to be able to do measurements.
I think for me, time to onboard still remains a classic, or like time for developers to like either use documentation or tooling, put sort of everything under time to onboard umbrella, because I think it's really important for you to understand exactly how much time they're spending in that process and in that journey, and where are the opportunities for improvement and where the friction is. And I think that's really a really good place to start in your journey.
And I think one that brings together both of your thoughts is the time to value, because it actually brings together all the aspects and the areas there where we are wasting the most of the time on the handoffs, and that could be automated is probably where we should be starting.
And I'm going to beat the drum of cognitive load again, just because I'm a big fan of making developers' life easier. So time spent looking for things is a lot of what we measure, or time to get unstuck is another variation of that, because you can easily like pinpoint the time sinks in your organization, like where do you see these points of like congestion and friction where people are like looking for stuff but not being able to find it. Would be a really good measure to just like round this up, all the good suggestions from ladies.
Yes, the numbers, I was trying to find it while we were doing, but the numbers of times people are spending looking for stuff is something that a lot of teams aren't measuring, but are astounding. I think Stack Overflow had like an hour a day or more people are, and that's a huge, that adds up monetarily. So, and then qualitatively, what are the questions you should be asking your developers early on and throughout? That maybe what's their greatest frustration? Another one from Abby's colleague Paula at Centasso, she said, just look through Jira tickets, try to find some common patterns, because they may all be very frustrated by Jira at times, but they're all putting their complaints on there. So you may find some common patterns that way. But what are some questions that you should be asking your, probably if you're talking about platform engineering program, overloaded developers?
I personally really like satisfaction questions, like how satisfied are you with our tooling on a scale from like 1 to 5, or how satisfied are you with the quality of our docs on a scale from 1 to 5? How satisfied are you with the process? So I really like those types of questions.
I do too, and I would like to add the one about the magic wand. If you have magic wand, what would be one thing you would change about our platform right now? Because that's something like it can give you some simple, easy idea that can improve the satisfaction very quickly if you get a lot of people saying about the same thing. So early in the day, that can be quite helpful.
Yeah, I'll add to that. What is the thing that worries you the most? I think that we talk a lot about developer satisfaction in the sense of like, do we have a foosball table at the office style? Are people happy? Are people, treated in some sort of a that way? But I think a lot of satisfaction comes from trusting in the processes, trusting that security is being built in, trusting that performance is being built in. So if people are worried every day as they're developing about security risks and they don't feel like they have the right support systems, that'd be something I'd want to hear about. So what worries you the most as you develop?
Totally. Yeah, what we do at Spotify, we have like a biannually, I guess, engineering satisfaction survey that takes like a diverse group of people from all different disciplines, all kinds of tenure, like from like real old timers to new joiners, and we survey them on 4 main pillars of developer satisfaction, which is productivity, blockers, tasks, and tools. And some of those questions are more like reflective, as in like, yeah, what would you do to improve X? And some are more like future looking, like if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And it's really amazing what you see come back in like in self-reported or perceived productivity, as well as like free text comments. I really love free text comments because like these are really golden. Like you get a lot of great ideas and inspiration from those. So can totally recommend.
One thing that Abby mentioned made me reminded me about really important metric that we can be collecting at the very beginning is a trust, but not just of the developers, because we are building the platforms for developers, with developers, but that we've got influencers in the organization, the security teams, the leadership teams, and so on. So understanding their trust into our product can be really key to make sure that we are going in the right direction. So that's really important to be somewhere there at the beginning of the platform journey.
And how do you measure trust? It feels very esoteric.
Yeah, it's it will be going down to the conversations, little surveys, like sometimes like where do you feel we are on this platform journey? Do you completely trust it? And then you can build on that. At this early stage, probably interviews with those people are giving you the most points. So I guess it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative things. So you can do like first of survey with numbers and then build on the results of that survey by exploring a little bit more.
What you're describing a lot of is a product situation where you're going through user research, early customers, trying to get early adopters that will be brand advocates. This is basic marketing and sales, but maybe not something the average computer science graduate is learning, or even boot camp graduate. We have a question from the audience. And thank you, Stefan, for that. And any idea how to measure time to discover? Because discoverability is a huge part of platform engineering. And he continues, when hunting for information, people start with X, but end up finding it's Y. How do you connect the dots? Don't all jump in at once.
Yeah, I can jump in potentially. So yeah, we measure this through like click rate to success, basically. There is like an internal search, and perhaps like a lot of companies have some kind of internal search, internal index type of capability. And like the most, like the basic metric that is really easy to measure would be like how many clicks does it take for you to land on something that was useful. So that's like our, I guess, basic measure there. And like it gets more granular, it gets more complicated, but basically like how many clicks did it take you to get to the search results you wanted to get to. But that's, let me clarify, that's searchability. The other thing is like discoverability, which is more by accident. Like sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know the type of information that might be beneficial for you. So that's more like how to surface the right information for a user based on their role, potentially based on their context. So maybe they don't like even know that exists in their organization, but that's, I guess, more of a sophisticated problem to solve. Searchability is easier to kind of start measuring through the click rate.
When you say click rate, are you measuring developers' clicks through a mechanical way, or are you asking developers to click? Are you observing some developers' use of it? Logistically, how does that even work?
Yeah, it's done through Google Analytics basically, and like supposedly you click, like you run search, you click, and then like if you spend less than like this amount, X amount of seconds or milliseconds on a page, then we can make an assumption if it was successful or not. Like supposedly if you found something that you were looking for, you would stay on that page for longer because you would need to read this. And if you just like quickly like skim through it, it's probably like wasn't super useful. And also like the next search that comes after that, like if you continue running, like refining your search term and running search after search, then you're probably still looking. So yeah, some of the basic assumptions there.
Very interesting. What you're talking about is taking skill sets cross-organizational, cross-functional, including from like marketing. So that's very interesting. Alex, how do you want to build on that?
I think it also depends on the size of the organization. First of all, it's such a good question, actually. So yeah, congratulations for that. I did two things actually, but I think these are more proxy metrics rather than actually actual metrics. So one, the majority of the documentation tools right now have like analytics. So I tend to browse through our sort of internal documentation analytics all the time and see how people are engaging with our docs. And then the second way I try to do this, usually when people can't find something, they ping a request of help to the internal developer platform team. And so I tend to look at how much time it's taking us to solve that request, and how much time it took that engineer to find the information. But these are all proxy and anecdotally rather than what sort of like Helen described, which is why I think it's also depending on the size of the organization. Really good question again.
It's really good. And Stefan actually brought a follow-up. So that's really good because platform teams have the same problem as developers, that there's so many disparate tools. And there are really good tools that do things really well. Like companies stop building their own payment platforms because Stripe is so good. And there's a lot of stuff, but they are disparate. So what if you don't have a single search? E.g., we all use tools, Notions, Tech Docs, Google Docs, Jira, and Slack. So information is kind of all over the place. So how do you do that? How do you bring them all together? Helen first.
Yeah, so the magic, at least like the way we see it, is a combination of like quantitative versus qualitative information. The analytics approach that I was describing definitely doesn't cover all of the sources that like one might be searching through. So what we do is we ask like all those same questions in the engineering survey, like how long does it take you to get unstuck? Typically, like what takes you out of flow, like how much time roughly do you spend on X, Y, and Z? Because for instance, like Slack, Jira, like we have a fair amount of tools that are indexed behind the Google Cloud Search, but not all of those potential sources. So things like Jira, Slack, it's really hard to measure how much time people spend there. So we do that by actually asking people like what's useful, what's not, how much time roughly do you spend on finding information. And then basically the intersection of qualitative and quantitative gives you the most actionable next steps and like points of friction. But yeah, that just works for us.
So while everyone on this panel besides me has been in the platform space for years, it's kind of come to head in 2023. And again, we've gone through a lot of layoffs over the last year. And on the other end, the cloud native landscape it doesn't fit on 2 screens anymore. You need to be at least a 3-screen user to see it all. And I'm sure there are some of those on the call. So with that in mind, developer productivity. Dun, dun, dun. I don't think anyone on the call, I'm going to jump ahead and say no one on the call is agreeing with the McKinsey framework. So don't read that. You can read my article about that on Lead Dev. Productivity, we are not defining as lines of code or time spent coding necessarily. So what is developer productivity and how do you measure it? Abby, you seem to be nodding.
Yeah, I'll say something. So my favorite kind of responses to that article and that framework is around how it's a measurement of teams at the end of the day. Are the teams being productive? Are the teams delivering value? And I think there are a lot of frameworks out there that talk about, I think Anna did a call to time to value earlier. What developer productivity is how long does it take from getting feedback, whether that be through a brand new idea hypothesis that was generated by the organization, or feedback from a user asking for something or being frustrated by something. How long does it take for the team to be able to deliver the next iteration on that? And I think that takes a lot of focus away from things like lines of code and even things like speed of your CI/CD delivery pipelines, right? That will be a part of it. But that whole phase of, wait, tell me more about what your problem is. Tell me more about what your hopes and your goals are for this ideation phase, and that whole prototyping phase and that whole figuring out what to build phase is part of that time to value. And I just want to make it clear, because I think that you've mentioned that that's sometimes not a skill that's been taught at uni for people in platform engineering, possibly in software engineering as a whole. Wanting to do prototyping, wanting to do discovery on a problem does not have to be days, weeks, months of a professionally trained person on those skill sets. This is just take out a Post-it note, sketch something down, and be like, is this vaguely what you were talking about? Okay, cool. And you can move on. If you got it right? Or else that might uncover something else. So I think what I would like to look at is the team's ability to deliver value and how long that might take.
Okay, Helen, you're nodding along, and then Anna.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it better, honestly. Abby just crushed it. Yeah, so that's a lot of like that resonates a lot, and that's how we measure developer productivity as well. Like it's mostly around developer journeys, optimizing certain parts within developer journeys, and like overall time to value. So yeah, plus 100 from my end.
Or squad journey, I guess, at Spotify. Anna, if people are just getting started, what should they be trying to measure in developer productivity?
So definitely what Abby said, but I also have to continue drumming for Helen in the space of cognitive load, because when we are starting the journey, we can see like how many blockers are being thrown under the feet of developer, with all the stupid, with all the forms, the different tickets, and so on. We need to fill. So ultimately, the best measure of like platform making it easy for developers to be productive is for the platform to ultimately becoming self-service, that they can have frictionless interactions with the platform, that they do not need to waste time on any additional admin or anything. They just want this, they click it, they get it. So that's the nirvana. And then one of the things we can measure is how far away we are from the nirvana and what will take us to get there. So that's just the elaboration of what Abby already said.
Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, we've mentioned layoffs and all. One of the areas that there have been layoffs in the last year are platform teams. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be a platform engineer. We need more. But if you are not able to connect what is another cost center in the largest cost center at most companies, which is engineering staff, if you're not able to connect that to business, you are at risk. If you can't prove, because a lot of these are really early on, like Anna said, a lot of these organizations are early in their platform journey. If they can't prove wins pretty soon after, they may be cut because companies just aren't investing as strategically in their staff as they should be right now. So one of the wonderful things about platform engineering is it creates a kind of a translation between business and engineering. So business starts to understand what engineering is up to because, again, spendy, and engineers start to have this connection to business value more and how they're driving it. So that's a wonderful benefit. So Alex, how do you measure business impact on a platform engineering team?
I think this is probably one of the hardest things of being a platform product manager, and it's still something that challenges me pretty much all the time and has been in all of my roles. Because it's not, you don't have a direct link to say, oh, this is how much money we brought into the organization, and this is like what we've been able to do or enable for the org. But in saying that, you look at the goals or the metrics the organization have. Usually if it's a SaaS business, you look at lifetime to value, cost acquisition, monthly active users, and then you try to find some proxies to that as well. I think one metric that is often overlooked, if you look at cost of acquisition for the customers, is exactly how much we're spending for the infrastructure and the tooling to acquire that specific customer, or like how much we're spending to sort of like maintain that specific customer. And I think cost optimization is a metric that isn't talked enough when talking about business impact, because I think ultimately that's where you can demonstrate the most amount of value. And then secondly, I think building on the cognitive load, which is an area that I'm super passionate about. I think if you are able to measure that, you then are able to demonstrate that you can free up time or for R&D purposes, where you can like get your engineers to work on more exciting stuff that can actually drive the organization forward. And ultimately, I'll go back to engineering speed, because it's all about the speed in which you're delivering value to the customers. If it takes you 3 or 4 days to put a PR in production, or 3 to 4 days to deliver something to the customer, then maybe there's a problem and there's something for you to solve there. So I think those 3 are the areas that I constantly go back and really not trying to reinvent the wheel. But I also like the SPACE framework. If you look at the SPACE framework of measuring developer productivity, there's some very good business impact metrics on there as well.
Yes, certainly we made it quite far without mentioning SPACE, but Dr. Nicole Boyspring's work with both Dora and SPACE are immeasurable here, and she is doing. Please, if you're watching ever, I really want to interview you. I think one thing that we're not doing with business impact or what platform teams often miss are connecting it with whole goals, which we know with Dora, we know with SPACE, with any goal, with OKRs especially, we lack this top-down messaging and view. So I know Spotify specifically, Helen, does it quite well. I learned from your colleague, Lauren, you start with, if you were doing the lagging value creation metric of like Spotify user satisfaction, which may be retention, and then that would go down to time to recovery affects user retention, downtime, things broken, we get distracted and go elsewhere or cancel our subscription. Then we know SRE team can really affect that. And then we go all the way to the leading actionable metrics that can affect the SRE's developer experience, which would be like latency of log ingestion. So you build up to support those OKRs. So what are some other ways, Helen, that you can measure business impact with an organization?
Yeah, I guess it's what you said, Jen, on like this whole graph of like connecting like really high level business metrics all the way to individual teams building specific tooling parts. But also I think there's a lot to be said about like cost saving opportunities that platform teams bring. And maybe it's not the prettiest of framings. It's not like maybe the sexiest of things you could be searching for, but it's really like an easy way to convince your stakeholders that like this team has gotten an ROI. And one clear examples of that could be like introducing standards and templates for people to do things as a means to streamline your workflow in the organization. And if you're just like really early on your platform journey and like looking for some quick wins, some things that would convince your stakeholders that like platformization is a way to go, I would really recommend like standardization and templatization of your workflow, like quick boiler code to spin up a new service or to spin up a new data pipeline. It just like makes it such a, irresistible argument as to why this is beneficial. So search for some quick wins and like solve for the biggest immediate problems of your organizations. And that would get your business on board with this whole idea.
Yes, Paolo from the audience echoed that by saying calculating the ROI in the right way is the key to success in convincing the business to invest in internal platforms. But on the other hand, Abby, does it prevent risks or more problems or security flaws? We haven't talked as much about that not unimportant, that work that really developers is not helping them differentiate, but is really, when we say not unimportant, is actually really important.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything that both Alex and Helen said around cost optimization and the process and all those things, like everything. Yes. One area where I've had success in a past job was to talk about risk. So we had fortnightly, so every 2-week release trains. And the idea was that we released every 2 weeks. And we didn't actually release every 2 weeks. We released almost daily because there were patches and fixes and hot releases and all these things that were happening. And so the perception from leadership about what was happening in the business and technology and the reality was very different. And the risk to those big releases, the likelihood that those big every 2-week releases would fail was extremely high. And so I took a calendar of, it was either a quarter or a half of a year, and I highlighted every day that we released in a different color depending on if it was successful, if it or failed. And I defined failed as needed a release immediately after it, because we were supposed to be releasing only every 2 weeks, or had an outage, was like a different color. If there was like an actual, like we had an incident that caused by it. And it turned out that our change fail rate was not very good, and we had huge risk about cost towards our customer success team supporting customers with these failures, and cost to our engineering debugging that. And so that was another place where we were able to show cost to the business being improved by improving our platform, by improving our delivery processes. So yeah, just another example.
And all really important, because I can't stress, if engineering can't talk business, and it's in the time of Gen AI and all, it's one of the most differentiating features is engineers need to be able to talk business, and platform teams need to be able to talk business, or else they get. So just as we're winding down, as your platform grows, as it matures, are there ways to measure your own and continuously improve? And Abby, I think you may have an open source CNCF maturity model you can provide
There
us
may have
insight.
been this little thing that we did over the last 9 months. So yes, thank you, Jen. A couple weeks ago, about 2-3 weeks ago, the CNCF Platforms Working Group was very excited to release something that had been in the works since the beginning of the year, which is a platform engineering maturity model that comes with about 12 pages, I think, of details. So yes, there's a table. Yes, you can screenshot it. But also, yes, there's a lot of context as to how all of this is very specific to your environment. Context is important, as Alex has said earlier. And this is hopefully going to help people at all levels of the organization. So leadership understand what's possible and where they might need to invest to get there. But also, I'm hoping that it will support platform engineers who want to start that conversation, to be able to point at something and say, this is where we are. Here are some examples from around the industry of the behaviors of where we are and the costs to that behavior. At our current scale as a company, I think it's worth us moving our maturity up a level. So please take a look, and we're always going to be keeping an eye on this. It's a growing space, and we expect that we will learn a lot over the next year as people put this to use even more, and we want to hear from you about how you do.
Okay. Thank you so much, Abby. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much, Anna. This was great. We really touched on a small amount of the topics because there was just so much more we could talk about. We will share links in the chat about different topics that you can continue your learning. And if there's someplace I think we all would agree, probably read the SPACE framework. It's open source and it's really valuable and important. So thank you all. I'm going to call Claudio back to the stage, and thank you, listeners, of course.
Thank you for the panel. It's been really eye-opening. So I hope everyone has enjoyed it as much as I have. And thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Abby. And thank you, Anna, for your precious knowledge you shared with us today.
See y'all. Bye.